everybody. Thank you for being here. Last week we got together and we spoke about the need to really bring community partners together to understand the pressure points we have in our community related to the potential migration crisis that's certainly happening in New York City and other parts of the country. Since then, we've convened with community partners who have active, are very active in this space. What we tried to task everybody with was to understand what our commitments are to the public here in Onondaga County, meaning Onondaga County residents. What commitments have we made to some of our foreign allies across the world with our refugee resettlement program, and what commitments are we prepared for any organic migration into our community, which happens certainly outside of a crisis. That could be migration from other states and or other countries. If they are in need and they are in need of shelter and they come to us, it's our responsibility. What we've determined, quite frankly, is that within the next 12 to 16 months, specifically related to the refugee resettlement program, and it will start in 2023, we anticipate as many as 1,900 new refugees coming. And we are working with our partners to build up the capacity to meet those commitments that existed prior to the situation that we're seeing at the southern border and the situation where we're seeing in New York City, where the government of New York City is sending migrants out of their jurisdiction into other jurisdictions. Our belief today is where we were last week, is that we are not in a position to accept migrants from any other government at this time. Saying that, after we've done our analysis and reaching out to partners, we now know for a fact that New York City has contracted with third-party vendors that are helping them work in New York City, and they are trying to hire in Onondaga County to locate migrants here, working essentially around county government. And that's something that the mayor of New York City said on a call last week with county and city leaders they would not do. It's our belief that they are doing that. And so we are issuing an emergency order related to the migrant crisis. Essentially, what the order will allow is it will allow Onondaga County to continue to manage what the situation has been, meaning that no municipality may make contracts with persons, businesses, or entities doing business within the county to transport migrants or asylum seekers to locations in the county or to house persons at locations in the county for any length of time without the express written permission of the county executive and or my designee. That's the crux of today. This is a fluid situation. We are preparing for the fact that we have an economic downturn and our safety net service programs for our residents are under pressure. We are planning and preparing for the commitments we've made to our national allies, foreign national allies, like the Afghanistan refugees, the Ukrainian refugees, and others that we've made commitments to, that when they come here, we're able to provide the necessary tools for these individuals to be successful and to be functioning members of our community. And we're very proud of that, and we're very committed to that. We are preparing for organic migration in itself, that if any of the individuals come directly into our community, we have to shelter those. We are preparing for that. What we are not prepared for is another entity, another government, to just drop off migrants in our community or to work around our infrastructure to drop off migrants and then only pay 4 months worth of the bill. The reality is the terms that New York City is trying to work with related to this, that they will pay for 4 months worth of services for these individuals that we know will need services for much longer, is completely unacceptable and never a deal that I would agree to. So saying that, we've ordered the emergency order. We will be getting you copies of that in short order, but happy to take questions.
Does this include hotels for making deals with other governments?
Absolutely.
So this matches what Oneida County did a week ago, what Oswego County did yesterday. Are they similar?
I think in nature they may be similar. I think the challenge, I haven't studied theirs. We really took a different approach. I don't know what those communities did as far as trying to understand what our capacity to help is. I know those communities aren't welcoming 1,900 refugees over the next 12 months like we are. Certainly if we didn't have that type of pressure, this might be a different conversation, and then the conversation would be more, okay, what is, if you want us to be helpful, we need terms that make sense for our community. But what's happening here is when you look at the globe overall, what's happened in the world, Onondaga County and the city of Syracuse have stepped up. And we've stepped up, and we are welcoming refugees from war-torn nations into our community. That takes a lot of infrastructure and a lot of planning. And so we recognize that our own residents, things in 2023 are not what they were in 2020 or 2021 when there was a lot of federal stimulus into the economy. We recognize that that's not the case. So we have more pressure with our residents now for safety net services. And we know we're going to see more migration here organically. So we're not in a position today to really even have the conversation with another government. And then for another government to try to be essentially setting up operations in our community without working through us is really problematic. So that really is why we're here today. We need to be able to manage this, and we can't manage it if infrastructure that we need for our own residents or for refugees is being taken up by another government.
What are you saying that New York City has specifically done? Have they contacted hotels or schools or what in the area? And what sort of proof do you have that that's happened? Has someone reached out to you?
Well, one of their main vendors who's helping them through this process has put out want ads for a field operations manager in Onondaga County. And so we heard this was coming through our own calls and our own ways of finding out information through different intelligence, obviously. But when you have one of the main vendors who puts a job ad, and their job is to place migrants into hotels in Onondaga County, I think that's a sign that New York City was not acting in good faith when they spoke to us last week, saying that they weren't looking to do these types of things.
Does this order also apply to the student campuses in the county? So I know
any government needs to work with our office, because we're the ones responsible, and quite frankly, we're the only ones footing the bill. Even the state of New York right now, they funded New York City $1 billion. We've had conversations with the governor over the past week as county leaders and city leaders, and there's not been an offer for funding. You're not going to see a lot of people rushing into, especially county governments that just got, decimated in this budget with the enhanced Medicaid funding being taken from us. You're not going to see county leaders that didn't budget for this crisis rushing to the state, say we can be partners in any way without funding, and the state has not offered any funding. Now, our county is different, because we are a refugee resettlement community. So we've already, what potential existing capacity we have, we've essentially already committed that to our war-torn nation allies across the world. And we're going to meet those commitments and live up to those commitments.
So if there was more funding, what would you do?
Today we have no capacity, period. Until we know we're going to be able to meet the commitments of 1,900 new residents in our community, and understand what a potential organic migrant flow would look like, the answer is no. In the event that 2 months from now, the migrant situation has not impacted us directly, we could have a conversation at that point. But the answer today is we are not in a position to take migrants from New York City because we already are taking in 1,900 refugees over the next 12 to 16 months, starting in 2023. And we need to do work to live up to those commitments, let alone we need to plan for what is happening in the economy with our own residents.
So when you say that you've talked to the state and they haven't offered any funding, have you asked for a specific amount? Or
I haven't asked for anything because I wanted this analysis to be done and have an understanding of what our ability was to help. But I'm sharing with you the reality of the calls for other communities. Is there's been no offer from the state to other counties to help with what the costs are. And the costs are these are very, very needy people that need shelter, they need food, and they need supportive services. Let alone most counties are in the same position we are, that we have funded positions that we cannot hire people that provide these same services. And so that's the reality, is that our community is already stepped up when our friends across the world have needed help, and we're stepping up in a big way with our refugees over the next 12 to 16 months. And certainly we'll see how this situation evolves, but we're not going to have another government trying to set up shop through their vendors in our community to take away capacity that we need for our own residents and for our own commitments.
Whether it be sorry, go
What
ahead.
is the penalty for the?
Yeah, we'll get you the order exactly, but certainly there's fines that we can impose and appearance tickets that we can impose on these entities within the community.
Whether it be the state or anyone else, has anyone actually said to you any kind of ballpark estimate, like worst case scenario, you'll need to take X number of people, and with this emergency order, does that stand up to a government like the state or even the federal government pulling rank?
The courts would work those things out, Connor. I do know that Rockland County and Orange County have had successful appearances in court over the last week related to this issue down there. I know in Orange County they had received 170 migrants from New York City. They went to court. The court ruled in favor of Orange County. New York City had 7 more buses coming into that community, and they had to turn that around. So I think overall there's lots of problems when you look at this from government to government. One, just logical, the lack of communication is really, really troubling when you're responsible as other leaders from being in charge of public safety and public health. To the actual way that the city is trying to dictate this is the support that comes with these individuals, when that support is likely very inadequate, is also very troubling. For us, we have great history of being a refugee resettlement community, and we're proud of that, and we're going to continue to do that, and we're going to honor the commitments we've made to these other countries.
When you look at all the state property in Onondaga County, do you fear there'd be some sort of jurisdictional disagreement? I mean, to the SUNY question, the governor is basically taking inventory of state property, and to you, that's just basically private property. And is there a mechanism to prevent them from using those kinds of properties for this?
Yeah, I think overall, I haven't done an analysis, Andrew, on any SUNY property in our county and who technically owns it. I'm pretty sure Onondaga Community College is owned by Onondaga County. And so, our lawyers would go back and look at to see who actually purchased that. But I don't think we're going to get there. I think the state of New York knows that we're doing our share, and we're bringing in not 100 refugees, we're bringing in 1,900 refugees into our community, and we're very excited about that. And we're going to live up to those commitments. And certainly, when you look at an idea of using SUNY campuses just logistically for 2 or 3 months, it's really not a great plan logistically, because what are you going to do with those individuals in 3 months? You're not going to shut down the SUNY network because of this. So I think really, I'm sure that state officials, New York City officials, are looking at other things to do, and plan for. Mind you, the city has received a lot of funding for this. They've received $1 billion. They've received FEMA funding. They'll likely receive more FEMA funding. And so this is a situation that they're better equipped to handle. I feel for what's happening there, but we're doing our share in the macro level with our refugee resettlement program.
We're, in a lot of ways, and I get that the sort of reality of the situation, the language can boil down to this, but at the end of the day, we're talking about people as, units, as a burden, the way that they're being described. What is the concern for if people do make their way up here after escaping for a reason about the way that they'd be treated?
Well, I think any human being that comes in here that needs help or organically from this situation is going to be treated with dignity and respect. Part of treating with people with dignity and respect means you give them the supports they need to be successful too. And certainly our belief is the program that New York City has set up for other communities is not a program that's going to lead to success for those individuals. To think that someone coming into this community with no network, maybe no ability to speak our language, is going to be set and ready to go in 4 months is just crazy. It's just crazy.
Are you aware of any of those organic migrants making their way here outside of New York City?
And we don't really track it. We'll probably start tracking. We know we have migrants that come through our community and need help, every month. And I'm sure we don't know what is going to happen with obviously the expiration of 42 at the border, but we're going to plan and prepare, and that's our job. That's our job. Our job is to manage through these crises, and when individuals or other organizations are creating circumstances that make it impossible for us to manage this, then we need to take action, and that's what today is.
Was this posting really the trigger step for you to go ahead and do this?
I could have done this a week ago. When I had county executives telling me this is coming our way, I didn't. I wanted to talk to stakeholders. I wanted to understand really what our commitments were to refugees. I know they were broad. I know that the mayor and I are very proud of the fact that we reached out immediately to the President of the United States related to what happened with the conflict and the war in Afghanistan, and certainly what's happening in Ukraine. And we need to live up to that. That means not giving D-level service when these individuals come into our community. It means getting these these individuals and our new neighbors the tools they need to be successful so that they can join our community and then they can join the workforce. And right now, we got a lot of work to do to be able to build up that infrastructure to get us to that point.
Was that, though, a final step for you to pull the trigger?
Yeah. When it's very clear that we don't have partners in good faith right now, and so we need to do what we need to do to manage the crisis.
When we spoke with Oswego County leaders about the similar issue, why they put out their order and their lack of resources, they specifically referenced their DSS being a bit underwater.
Mm-hmm.
Today we had Onondaga County DSS workers out front picketing, saying that they're about 50% understaffed where they should be, underpaid. What is the current state in Onondaga County, and what's the work looking like to get their numbers boosted?
Yeah, we have funded positions in that department that we would like to be funded. We have civil service requirements, though, that don't allow us just to hire anybody. We have the civil service system is one that is difficult when you're trying to work through a workforce. So, we would like more people in DSS.
Is that 50% figure accurate?
I have no clue who's said that, and I'm not going to comment on any sort of comment at a rally. The reality is our number is not 50% related to vacant positions. That's silly.
When you say the civil service is the issue, are you claiming that the issue is just people aren't applying, or are you saying that there's nothing?
Yeah,
that fixed from within?
you have both. So we have a problem with applicants. So anyone who's looking for work that wants to join the county team, please apply. Second, you have civil service requirements, which are union-based requirements that you have to meet certain eligibilities to have a certain position, and we have to work within those. And when you talk about pay, we negotiate. These employees are represented by a union, and we negotiate, and that's the reality of that. And we're in negotiations now.
When you talk about capacity in general, and back to the migrant crisis specifically, what exactly goes into capacity for one person? You've kind of, over the past two events with you about this, you've mentioned some of it broadly, but could you be a little specific about what goes into services needed for even one person?
Yeah, so you're looking at certainly where are we going to house the individual? How are we going to provide food for the individual? How are we going to provide health care to the individual? How are we going to provide ESL services to the individual? How are we going to provide legal services to the individual? Because until all that is done and done well, that individual cannot work. And that is part of the big problem. These aren't individuals that can just come into our community and go work somewhere that's trying to hire. That's not how this works. And so that has to be done for every single human being, and so that's a challenge. And there's no money for us to do that outside of what we've already committed. And so that human case support. Connor just brought it up. Okay, if we're already down for where we want to be, and you're bringing in more people that are 100% on cases, right, on human services, on safety net services, every single person we're talking about would be, who's going to do the work, right? That's the challenge. And so we've made commitments to our refugee population. We need to make sure we can live up to those commitments. We have the reality that if you come here organically, we will take care of you. We have to somehow build capacity for those individuals, which we don't know how many people that's going to be.
Are those 1,900 specifically Afghanistan and Ukraine?
Those would be our newest, but there still is other countries that will support through in that 1,900 number as well.
Has the state told any of the upstate counties? I feel a few of these emergency orders feel more on the preventative side rather than reactive to potential plans. Have any of your upstate colleagues in other counties been told of potential plans to send migrants here?
I think overall the posture from the New York City compared to New York State is very different. And so New York City clearly is doing whatever they choose with very little communication, or the communication that we had wasn't accurate. The state is we're trying to communicate about what's going on from a macro level, but there have not been solutions related, and nor has there been a situation where the state has said, yes, we're going to send migrants into your community, even though you don't have the ability to support those migrants. That has not happened to date. But what clearly has happened is that these same individuals that are leading, the private vendors that are leading the effort in New York City, are now trying to hire in our community to set up similar situations where they would essentially be trying to contract with the same people we contract with. And we need that capacity for our own residents and for the refugees and for our own migrants that are going to come here. That's just the reality of it. And that's kind of where we stand today.
Has anyone at this New York City or New York State level that you've been in touch with say, we hear you, we get it, you don't have room, we'll look somewhere else?
No, I think overall the message, and again, when we spoke to the mayor of New York City, he's talking to leaders from across the state, right? This isn't a one-on-one conversation, but the message was very clear. We're New York City. You need us. It is what it is. That was the message, right? And that the behavior since then with other communities has been consistent with that message. That's not the message we're hearing from the state and the governor, but there hasn't been any thing that we would consider, all right, that's a solution that's going to alleviate some of this. This is serious. To Connor's point, these are human beings, and these are human beings that need help. And there's the ability for the municipality that they're all going to, that has the infrastructure and has the resources, to help them there. And should the mayor and the state have gotten on the same page a lot earlier? Yeah, they should have.
Is there an upstate community you've heard from that does have capacity?
Well, I heard in Westchester County they said that they have capacity. I don't know whom else. I don't know in Western New York how things stand or don't stand. I know most of these communities don't do what we do with refugees.
Who is the vendor, and how does that process actually work? Is that just,
We'll provide the vendor, and you'll see the job post. And this was flagged for us by by individuals close to the New York City operation.
You got a mole in New York City?
You don't ever give your intelligence sources. You guys are pretty good at protecting your sources too, if I remember. So, so that's certainly we're disappointed. But we've taken a data-driven approach to this, and we have commitments we've made to our refugee program, and we're going to live up to those commitments first. And right now, we're just not in a position to be able to take migrants in from other governments, and nor are we going to allow that to be forced on us at this point.